Record to the clock. All right. For those of you who are joining us again, we just tried to go live on Facebook with this and it did not work well. We had lots of feedback. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Gilles to the call today. Gilles, as everyone knows, I love to showcase practitioners that are doing some amazing things to help people with their health and longevity. And Gilles of O2 Max Moncton is no stranger to the health and wellness industry himself. And he's also been a longtime friend of mine who certainly helped me in the past as well too. And is helping me yet again with what he's doing. So welcome to today's webinar, Gilles. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Catherine.
Absolutely.
Pleasure to be here.
So a little bit, we're going to dig right in. We've got about 45 minutes, so we're going to dig right into this. It's a jam-packed show here today. So Gilles, I'm going to pass it over to you and tell the audience a little bit about yourself, and then let's go right into why is O2 Max and what you do, why is it so important to a person's health?
All right. Well, my name is Gilles Essiembre, and I'm a personal trainer when I first started off, and then I started studying a little bit more on physiology and getting really more in depth on the human anatomy, how it works, how breathing affects the health, the food affects the health, and it just developed more into start getting courses in respiratory and getting courses in metabolic health assessment, and taking physiology, exercise physiology courses, and it kind of metamorphs into where O2 Max is. And O2 Max, what we do, we provide not just an athlete that wants to be like a track athlete that wants to do 100 meters, maybe in 5% less time, or a hockey player that just wants to be able to breathe better on the ice, so that way he can make smart decisions on the ice, or to put himself into a vulnerable position in the corner because he's not breathing correctly because there's not enough oxygen inside the brain. So yes, I do get athletes, but the majority of the people that I'm helping is people that are looking for longevity of life, people that want to age more gracefully, enjoy what life has to offer into our 60s and 70s and 80s and so forth, and the better quality of life. So that's where O2 Max is really concentrating its time on. We have we do a metabolic test. So basically it's the same thing as kind of what you do. It's a snapshot. When I do all my tests, it's a snapshot on your on Catherine. That's what we're going to work. We're going to actually kind of show the audience today. It's a snapshot on Catherine. A lot of really good stuff on what Catherine did on all these tests, but it goes to show you that what we're going to show the audience is what more we can bring you in the next weeks, and then 6 months, year. There's many goals to be had that I never even told you about, because it's kind of like a golf swing, right? If I tell you everything I'm going to work on the golf swing, you're not going to know how to swing that golf club. So I'm going to fix just basically maybe your hand position on this golf club, and maybe just a little bit of quick form, and then I'll just keep going down the line. So the first thing we're going to do, maybe we can show the audience maybe the one of the reports, because I have many reports that I do with my clients. So maybe I can share the screen, Catherine.
Sure. This is your webinar to share with people, Gilles. So please go ahead. So everyone, just so that you know, I went into Gilles a couple of weeks ago.
I can do that. Ooh, where'd you go? All right.
And I did all the testing with Gilles. So I shared that out on my Facebook page. So if you want to kind of see, I was on the treadmill. I looked like some sort of space alien. I had all these pieces of equipment on, and Gilles was doing all the monitoring. So it's an incredible test. You go in, you get the testing done, and then 48 hours later, you meet with Gilles again to get all of your results. And then we meet again to kind of take a look at what is the actions to increase your health and longevity. So with that, I will pass it back over to you here, Gilles.
All right. Do you see my screen, Catherine?
Yeah, I certainly do.
Oh, well, fantastic. So this is I call it the nice, beautiful report that I send to my clients. So this is kind of like the overview of the entire system that I'm looking at when I do this test. So breathing cognitions, you name it, your cardiovascular fitness, your heart function, how your lungs are operating. And the important thing for people to not get hurt is how stability is your thoracic spine. If you're not breathing deep enough, this might be a little bit off, and you might risk hurting your back and getting some injuries. And of course, we're checking for your fat burning efficiency and so forth. So these reports look really good, but I go a little bit more in depth. This is, I call it the very pretty picture. So when you scored, this would be basically your optimal minor limitations. Anything below the 80% is a minor limitation. So as you see, Catherine, your aerobic health came in pretty good. This is basically came into optimal. Of course, I want this to be right up here into the upper 90 percentile, cardiovascular fitness. And what I got you to do is basically when you see something, you say, well, I want my cardiovascular to be a little bit higher. So instead of you want to read up a little bit about it, I have the description on what this metric involves, because not everybody knows, well, why is my cardiovascular low? Well, you can read up a little bit about it. So this is the nice professional one. As you knew, Catherine, your respiratory capacity was extreme. I'll show the audience after what, your lungs were actually it was 1.5 liters bigger than a woman of your age, your size, your ethnicity. Uh, you know, it was pretty incredible to see, actually. But we're going to show the audience a negative side to having such big lungs too. So your capability, this is your capacity. So great lungs. Your capability is how you use your lungs during exercise. And you did very well for what you have. Again, what you have. So your capability is really on. So that means kind of like your coordination. Are you hyperventilating? Are you not? So this was really good. Your stability, you're taking some deep breaths. So it's keeping your thoracic spine good. Now, these numbers on my other report, I'll show you that I didn't score you at 100% on these, and I'll show you why after. So cognition, you're getting enough oxygen into the brain, so you can make some good decision if you be like jogging or mountain climbing. If you see a mountain lion, you might be making good decisions. So your fat burning efficiency is how well is the body burning fat, and this is one area that we're working on. So you're only burning, I think you're like at barely 6 calories per minute of fat that you're burning. Now that's in your zone 2, which we'll tell a little bit about the audience after about the different zones. We want to increase that to maybe 10 calories. So I almost want to double it, not quite double it, but I want you to burn more fat. So basically, every minute, instead of burning 5 to 6 calories of fat, I want you to be burning 10. And I have an exercise protocol to help you to increase that. And we already started it. High intensity performance, you're basically in a minor limitations there. So we can increase that. And again, my protocol, without diving too much into it, my protocol will help do that. Mechanical efficiencies, I use that more for runners. If they would have a low score like this, I would be getting a running coach, and we would basically do some running form, or I would work with the client on that. But for walking, I'll be teaching you a little bit of walking form when your foot gets better. Recovery capacity is, how fast is you're able to get rid of that carbon dioxide and get more oxygen into your tissues, because we pushed you right to the limits there, right? When you're in your zone 5, it was you're pant pretty hard, you're at your limits. So how fast do you get rid of all those gases and replenish the proper gases and recover your heart rate? And you did pretty darn good. You know, you're right at the 86 percentile. So that is the pretty things that I send to my clients. And you'll see this is your different zoning. And this is important, really, really, really important. Now, I'll just highlight 3 of them for you. This is the zone that most people always train in, and I call it the useless zone. I'm never in this zone 3 myself as an athlete. I'm never in that zone unless I'm in competition. That's the only time I will use zone 3. It does not appear in any of my protocols. So I call it the useless zone, but this is the zone that everybody has a big number. So between 111 to 144 is where you're comfortable. You've been training all your life. You probably do HIIT training and you're always in that comfortable zone 3. You're getting a good sweat. But physiology wise, you know, it's great. It improves your VO2 and some of the cardio aspects of it, but it doesn't really improve some of the physiology stuff that I really like zone 2. Zone 2, we're using oxygen and to be able to convert your fat into energy. It's the best fuel to use, Kevin, because you have maybe like 30,000 calories of fat right now to be able to use. So if you need to go for a long time, well, guess what? If you keep your heart rate between 97 and 111, you can go on for a long time because you got 30,000 calories of fat to use.
Right.
Versus carbohydrates or, you know, whatever we eat, we might have like stored calories of maybe of carbohydrates and glucose, maybe 2,000, let's call it. So eventually, you know, if you were chasing, if you're being chased by a very slow bear and you got to keep going, well, you're not going to go too far if you're burning just those 2,000 calories. You'd have to stop and eat something, and hopefully the bear is going to start, you know, eating berries and stuff like that while you replenish your calories. So we want you in this wonderful zone 2. This is where you build what we call mitochondria. Mitochondria is like it basically densifies your muscle cells, and it densifies even in our brain. And mitochondria is the epitome of our health.
Yeah, that's
So,
very important.
and the more I get you to train in this zone, right, this zone 2, you're gonna probably go up the next time we test. I'm hoping that you go maybe about 120 heart rate, that you'll be able to still burn fat right up to about 120. And eventually I'd like to see you in the 130s. So what my aim is to shorten this big zone 3 that everybody trains in.
So Gilles, I'm going
to
interject here just real quick because
Sure.
I want to share with the audience why this is so important, and like for me, as from my example. So for everyone listening, zone 2 is different. You can leave it up, Gilles. Go ahead, keep sharing, honey, so they can see it. But zone 2 is different for every body. And my clients all know I talk about this all the time. Every body is different and how we respond. So it was important for me when I was going through this testing to learn from Gilles is that I was not in my zone 2. So remember, zone 2 is where I'm burning fat. Okay. And I couldn't figure it out because I've been doing a lot of exercise for, you know, for a few good years and really consistently over the last 2 years, but I wasn't seeing the results that I should have been seeing, number one. Number two, after my workout, I could lay down and go to sleep. I was exhausted versus where most people after they work out, you know, they've got some energy there. I wasn't. So there was a couple of things going on. But the reason why zone 2 is so important for you to know is this. For me, you see here on Gilles' screen, zone 2, 97 to 111. That's my heart rate. That's where I have to keep my heart rate to burn fat. When we did the test, I was only staying in this zone for a very short period of time. And then I was in like that zone 3, zone 4 area where I wasn't burning fat, but I was playing myself out. And I was going for a long time thinking that I was doing all the right things. And so what's really important is this. My husband has gone to see Gilles as well. His zone 2 is different. I've got a few other people that have gone to see Gilles. They've shared with me their zone 2 is different, right? So when the day that Jill shared this with me, I came home and I got myself a Fitbit, which I only wear when I'm working out for health reasons. But I went for a walk like I normally walk, which is a very fast, brisk walk. Well, guess what? I was constantly walking in zone 3. I texted Jill and said, oh my God, zone 2 for walking is really slow for me. But my slow walk would be someone else's fast walk. So this
You
is
got
why
it.
it's really important for people to understand your zone 2, because that's where you're burning the fat. And I had no idea. I was doing it all wrong.
And
I was not
also, Catherine, to add to that, you're also ruining your metabolism, right?
right, which is why I was so tired.
And just to give you an example, for myself, being a long, an ultra runner, and I love to run in the mountains, I'm, if I'm going in zone 3 and 4 and 5s at times, I'm kind of ruining my metabolism a little bit. So what I need to do to increase that metabolism is do a lot more zone 2 into my training and increase my muscle size. So that's doing resistant training,
Right.
which we're doing, right? So this is remember, anybody who keeps doing all zone 4 and 3s and are always doing HIIT training, you're slowing down your metabolism because you're always into that high intensity cardio state, and it takes a long time to recoup. Once you finish this test, you reach that zone 5, technically it takes 48 hours for your body to recuperate because I pushed you in the zone 5, right? So
Right.
zone 2, Catherine, you're able to recoup really fast. You're not as tired, and you're reducing body fat. We're increasing your metabolism. We're doing all the right thing based on you. Now, me, like for examples, like I because I train so much in zone 2, which just sucks in a way, because to say it bluntly, for me it was boring because I had to run so slow, and I just wanted to run faster. So it took me 6 months, and I was able to bring my zone 2 right up to about 100, well, exactly 157. So your zone 4, well, is my zone 2. So I
It's
can
your
run.
now your zone 2.
My zone 2 is right up to 157, and then I switch fuel source to carbohydrates, and that enters zone 3. But I can run really fast in the 140s and 150s. So for me now, I'm having fun. So I had to run slower to run faster.
Right. Slow down to speed up.
Slow down to speed up. Yeah, to use the correct fuels, right? So now when I'm done my runs, I'm not tired. I can go, and I've tested many weird things just to show you what zone 2 can do. I did a 24-hour fast just to see, and I went for a half marathon in the woods, not a half marathon on the road, in the woods in the mountains. Was not hungry. I kept my zone, kept it in the zone 2, my heart rate through the entire thing. Was not starved, was not hungry afterwards. But it goes to show you that my body was using fat as fuel during that half marathon in the woods.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So that is this one. Now I'm going to go to the less pretty one. How's that? Let's stop sharing that one, and I'm going to show you my one where I dive a little bit deeper, Catherine, into Catherine. Yeah. We're going to show you how those big lungs are awesome and bad in
not so
another
awesome.
way. Yeah, I mean, it's still good, right? It gives me
it's all right. My audience knows I love sharing all of the details, because if we share the details, I don't mind sharing because it helps somebody else. So.
All right.
Here we go.
All right. So this is all zone again are here, right? So we got your zone 2 when your heart rate goes 94 to 111. We know we're burning fat. So this is actually, let's go over your score on we call it the spirometer. So I'm testing your total lung volume, which is called FVC. This is the predicted of a woman, your height, your age, ethnicity, you name it. Based on that, total lung capacity should have been 4 liters. Your power, I call it the power of 1 second. So how much air, how much of your total lung capacity can you get rid of in 1 second on your expiration? When you blow it all out, you should be able to get rid of all your lung capacity, 80% of it in 1 second. let's say it takes 6 seconds to get rid of the entire lung volume. Well, you should be able to get rid of 80% in 1 second. Now look at the numbers here. Your actual compared to predicted, 5.76 liters. So you have bigger lungs than me, almost by a liter. So your lungs are totally, and I knew right away, I was like, yoga, you must be doing yoga, because I know you're not doing my training yet because you never hired me. So 5.76, that's a liter, and 1.74 liters. That's insane. Bigger than the predicted person. Now, those big lungs of yours, great. You did yoga and you got those big lungs, but you're not using them because when you got that 1 second, that power output, how fast can you get rid of that air? You blew higher than the predicted, but again, the predicted was based on 4 liters. You were able to get rid of 3.72 liters when you should be getting rid of 4.6 liters. That would have been 80%.
Yeah.
You scored 64%, and I gave you that little red line there.
Yeah.
So that could, for me, that's a sign of either asthma, COPD, but with the case of someone with big lungs, it's not any of those, because I listened to your lungs. You have nice, beautiful lungs, sounding lungs. It's, you never trained for it. So now that you got your big lungs, you just now got to learn to use them. It's like a bodybuilder who built all these big muscles and he doesn't know to do any sports, doesn't know how to run, doesn't know how to do anything. So I got to train your lungs to be able to sprint, we'll call it.
Yeah.
So that is that on that aspect. Now, another thing on your that we didn't talk about was your resting metabolic rest. So I made Catherine basically lay down and we test her metabolism. And remember a while ago when we said that when you're doing all your exercise was always zone 3 and 4, it lowered your metabolism by a lot. So your metabolism is like almost in the severe side. So we need to like crank it up. Mm-hmm. No more of the zone 3, except I allowed Catherine to do once a week, go to town on zone 5. So do interval training, zone 5, zone 2, zone 5, zone 2. But anyway, let's go back to your resting one, that 10-minute rest. The human body, to stay at pH level of, we'll call it 4 to 6 liters, is what we need to consume to consume of oxygen. So that's 4 to 6 liters of air coming in per minute. Now you were ventilating and inspiring 9.32 liters. So you're doubled of almost double what you should be, right? 4 to 6. So you're definitely between 1.5 times to 2 times more liters of oxygen, or we'll call it of air, because there's more than just oxygen that you're breathing in. Now you're breathing in liters. Remember, you got these big lungs, 5.76. You're very calm, 0.74 liters. That wasn't so bad. So your volume intake was good. Now the frequency, how fast you're breathing. You should be breathing 6 to 8 times a minute. You're breathing at the lowest point, Catherine, the lowest point in the whole 10 minutes, you're breathing, let's call it 13 times a minute, your lowest. So you're chronic, we call that chronic hyperventilating. So you're not using what you have. So what this causes, sleep, your pH level is off. When you hyperventilate, you got so much oxygen. And what happens, I'll kind of just stop sharing for a quick second. So when you were hyperventilating at rest, what happens is we got a blood, right? We got the hemoglobin. And then when you breathe in, you got the oxygen, and it attaches to that hemoglobin. So it goes through your blood, but because you're breathing so much, it decreases your CO2 level. When you decrease that CO2 level, hemoglobin and the oxygen are sticky. So it goes to your tissues and it's trying to release to the tissues to basically offload the CO2 and load the O2. But because it's so sticky, it's just going along and coming back, and we just expire it out through your mouth. So this is what happens when we chronic overbreathe. So that's a muscle tissue. Well, guess what? Your heart is a muscle. This is very hard on your heart, right? There's a lot of case study on heart attacks where they did this study, and it was like a crazy amount, almost like 100% of heart attacks, people were all over breathers. Is that the major cause? Well, think of it. If the muscles can't get the oxygen and heart can't get the oxygen, so we're depriving the heart even at rest. So you're depriving your heart of that wonderful oxygen, even though you're breathing fast. But guess what? That oxygen and hemoglobin, they just don't want to release it. But as soon as I get you to slow down, so your CO2 is going to go up, right? We're trained that CO2, bad gas, oxygen, good gas. No, CO2 is very, very, very important. So on that, we need to fix your breathing at rest and to start doing some of these exercises a little bit more. Your heart rate at rest was really good. Look at that, 52 heartbeats per minute. So that's
Got to
very
share
good.
again, Jill. We don't see your screen, honey.
Oh, yeah, I got to go share that. And let me know if you ever need a little bit further explanation. Sometimes I get a little too technical.
No, it's okay. But while you're bringing that up, I just, again, I want to share with people, digging into
for me right now.
Digging into your health on various levels gives you different information, right? So, for me, yes, I'm 51, great shape, great health, all those things. However, thought I was, and I still am, but the breathing is so important. And I had no idea, right? So I'm a go person. And it's interesting because I've said before, on some days I'll take really deep breaths because I'm go, but you get so used to breathing the way that you breathe, you don't even realize that you're in a hyperventilating state. And I never would have guessed that I was a hyperventilator at all. But because I breathe as many times as I do, it's really interesting doing Gilles' training. I'm going to tell you one of the hardest things I think I've ever undertaken, and I've done lots of different exercises and HIIT training and stuff like that. But I'm going to tell you, when I'm on that bike doing my zone 2 training and I'm trying to control my breathing at the same time, I'm going to tell you, it's one of the hardest things I think I've done. It's really interesting.
And all my breathing exercise is like a lot of my breathing exercise is how to tolerate CO2, right? We kind of learn to not being able to tolerate CO2. So a lot of my training will involve CO2 tolerance. So we got to let the body know it's okay to feel that air hunger a little bit, so we can raise that CO2, so we can absorb that oxygen into the heart, into all those vital organs. And guess what? If you do a small breath hold of about, let's say, 10 seconds, especially with you, because you breathe so fast chronically, you do a breath hold of about, let's call it 10 seconds. Now, when you do your breath hold, it's on an expiration, you would increase your brain capacity, mentally, sharpness by 10% instantly.
Amazing.
Because that breath hold will raise your CO2 and will oxygenate your brain automatically. That's how powerful that just a short breath hold can do. And there's different techniques. If you're going into a meeting, you want to be sharp, no problem. I can teach you how to properly breathe right before that speaking engagement, or that you need to be really sharp. Raise your CO2 a little bit, and that is the key. Now, we're going to go back into your zone 2. I'm going to explain why, Catherine, that we didn't dive right deep into that, but since I'm with the audience, this is what we're going to be working on: is your FEV1, your power output should be 4.6 liters with those nice big lungs of yours. Now, technically, I always give, when you're breathing 70% or more, I give you a green. I'm going to give you a nice little green here, because I didn't give you that green here. I think 70%. I'm just going to explain this here. On your zone 2, you're breathing 2.32 liters, right? Now, this is every breath you were taking, 2.32 liters, and you're breathing 24 times a minute, which is perfect. You weren't hyperventilating when you're actually doing your exercise in zone 2. And look, you weren't hyperventilating almost, actually throat, you weren't hyperventilating, but you're only breathing in 2.32 liters, 2.65, 2. This is not bad for this number, but you should be at this number. So you should be breathing 75% of this number during your exercise, which is 3.45 liters. So I'm giving you, yes, I'm giving you green here, but based on this number, when you should be here. So when I fix this number, just fixing this one number is going to fix all this because your coordination is there. Catherine knows how to breathe 70% of this 1 second value. For athletes and when we train, we use the power output. So we use this when we walk, we run, we do exercise, we use usually this value. And you're able to use 80% of this value on your zone 5 because you're at your maximal capacity. You're breathing heavy, you're breathing as deep as you could, right? 80% is a very good score for this number.
Right.
But we need this number. So that way you're breathing at 75%, you would have been breathing 3.45 in. So that's the cool thing. But in essence, for my clients, they don't need to know what I just said. I need to bring this to 4.6 liters. Catherine, that's what we need to do. So we're going to work on your expiratory muscles. We're going to train your brain. We're going to train your diaphragm and all those intercostal muscles that involved in the respiratory system to bring this to 80%. So that is the respiratory system, the power it has. So you were very well coordinated. It's very rare that I see someone very well coordinated. But and to have the adverse result on your RMR, which is your resting metabolic, how you were chronically overbreathing at rest. And that could be stress, could be your mind, versus maybe when you're exercising, you just let your body and the natural instincts take over, right? So there's different
I
ways.
can absolutely tell you that, Gilles, because when I'm resting, I don't rest. My mind, that monkey just swings in those bananas constantly.
Exactly. And that's where I come in and have to teach you how to breathe and to quiet down the monkeys to be able to go. So I was an overbreather as well at rest. I think I wasn't that bad, but I was still 7.85 liters at rest. And I was breathing about I forget something like 8 times a minute or something like that breathing frequency. So it wasn't bad. I was able to just by breathing techniques for 6-8 weeks, it dropped it down to 4.85 liters. Now people say, well, why 4.85? Why between 4 and 6? Well, when you overbreathe like you are right now, you're going to the alkaline level. Well, guess what? So your pH is 7.4. You're breathing heavy like that throughout the day. So that means you're always pushing to 7.5 pH. You're going up the ladder. So what happens? Well, your body now is in an alkaline state. One, you're going to start craving acidic foods because your body wants to drop the pH. So what does it do? It's going to crave maybe acidic food. Why is proper breathing at rest so important for fat loss, for weight loss? Well, you're not going to have any cravings if your pH level is at 7.4. If you're acidic, well, guess what? You're probably gonna crave the alkaline foods, right? So very important for the general well-being of your pH level. We don't want cancer cells to develop. We don't want the stress on your organs that too much oxygen that's not being absorbed, or not enough oxygen is getting there. So we made a nice little protocol for you. Now, the only one that's not there would be the respiratory training for Catherine. And for you, because of your zone 2 was only at 111, I really want you to be, in 6 months from now to be in the 130s. To have your heart rate at the 130s. That means you're going to be working harder, but still burning that fat as fuel. So zone 2, you can't really overtrain. So I don't mind you doing it every day. A zone 2, you got to stay consistently in that zone. So people say, well, I'm at the gym and most of the time I'm in zone 2. No, it has to be a continuous walk, jog, or cardiovascular type of thing. Now, notice that I put that zone 2 and zone 5. Now, your zone 5 starts at 154 to 165. So it's called an interval training. I don't want to put it more than once a week because your metabolism was so low. So we want to increase your metabolism, Catherine, to make it to the optimal level. So that's why we added a lot of resistance training. When we do some resistance training, I'm adding some muscles to you. When we add muscles, we're upping your metabolism. And zone 2 as well is doing the same thing. It's upping your metabolism. The only time I'm going to really target that spot where it's not increasing your metabolism, it might be hurtful, would be the interval training. However, when we do the interval training, I'm not going to keep you in that zone 5 for very long. What I'm teaching the body and brain to do is that I'm showing the body that you're in zone 2, you're burning fat, and then I'm going to spike you up to zone 5 for 30 seconds, and then I'm going to bring you back down. We're going to calm your parasympathetic nervous system again. So we're resetting the system back up so I can bring you back up to zone 5, calm you down, bring you back up to zone 5. So it's not going to be so hard on your parasympathetic nervous system. We're not killing it. If you're doing a continuous zone 5 training, like in a race or something like that, very, very taxing on the body. It creates an oxidative stress. So we don't want to create that big stress, but I still want your body to go, why is she going to zone 5? Oh, we're back to burning fat. Oh, I like this. Oh, back to zone. So I'm teaching the body to burn more fat. You're burning 5 to 6 calories of fat. So by doing this protocol here, zone 2, zone 5, it's going to up the amount of fat you burn per minute. And this is your protocol. So we retest you. My goal is for you to be, your zone 2 is going to increase. I want your metabolism to be higher. This is all within 6 to 8 weeks. And I want you burning more fat. So these are the results. Now, if you're not burning more fat, I'm going to say, Catherine, be honest with me. Did you really do that interval training I told you? Yeah. No. All right. Or if you were, I'll say, well, you know what, Catherine, your metabolism went way up. Let's add twice a week. We're going to do an interval training.
Right.
So we adapt with how you're adapting. So I'm not shooting darts. I can tell if you're cheating. I can tell if you're not going to do zone 2 because your zone 2 is the same. I'm like, Catherine, are you sure? Are you putting your watch on? I know you don't like those frequencies, but are you sure you're in zone 2? Because I think you're in zone 3 because your zone 3 is like loving all this.
Yeah. And that, that was one of the things too, because I'm not a big fan of the Fitbits. However, I had to, because I have no idea. But so just for everyone that's watching too, and we'll tie up here real shortly. One of the most important things I want people to take away from this today is that Gilles is another practitioner, wonderful practitioner that is doing some incredible work on really understanding what the body, your metabolic body is doing and how that translates into, you might be 51 today, but your metabolic rate might be 65, right? So there's ways to change that and to help support the body from a longevity perspective. I was talking to a friend of mine, and she's working with this doctor who studied her PhD in this generation of people. So I'm saying our generation, right? We are the first generation of all generations that are wanting to be more active and to live with more longevity. So how do you do that? Well, it's people like Gilles who are helping us to understand how all the different aspects of our body is working and how to increase that. Because I'm going to tell you, I was pushing through with HIIT training constantly, but I'm telling you, I was ready for a nap after I was done. Couldn't figure out why. I met with Jill, and then all the light bulbs went on. And then, like I said, getting my Fitbit and understanding I was walking, but I was walking in zone 3. I was never walking in zone 2. And then I wonder why I keep hurting my feet all the time, because I'm a go. However, it was just so important for me to understand so that I can course correct and keep doing the things I love to do, but do it from a more healthy perspective.
Exactly. And we didn't go over to your score on your VO2. This is a predictor of that people that are into anti-aging and metabolic age. We use that as a predictor for your longevity. You scored very good. You scored excellent. You're like a tad right below superior. So I know I can put you in the superior. You scored, I think, about 35 VO2. So that's basically milliliters of oxygen per kilogram that is being absorbed by your tissues, right? So you scored very good. So again, to go what you just said about aging backwards. So right now, because you scored such a high score, and then the other scores you scored low, you're basically right around your age right now. So it's very easy for me to go backwards now, right? You score higher on your metabolic age on certain things, and lower on others. You scored lower for your metabolic age on that VO2 max. And the goal for some of my clients, I do have one client, he's 76 years old. I'll do a quick little story on VO2 max. Is I've been working with him for about 7 years. We basically work the numbers backwards. What's your goals? Well, he says, I want to be able to hike in my 80s and be very, to be able to even like follow my grandkids hiking. Problem. All right. So if you want to be hiking, you need to be at this VO2 max. Okay. This VO2 max for you will be great. So we started off, I think he was like, a 30 VO2 max in his early 70s. And we brought his VO2 max to, I think it was almost like 38, 39 VO2 max. Fantastic. Because now I know that every decade he loses about 10%, and we lose 10%. So I knew at 38, well, guess what? 38 minus 4 is what? It's 34. So I know that at 80, in his early 80s, that he'll still be at 34, and that gives him a metabolic age. When I did his full test at the end of all my protocols, he was 20 years younger. So he's 76 now, he's 56. And people think, how accurate is that? Well, he actually went to a place in Florida, and he got blood test, like all the who's doctors in Florida, and they gave him 19 and a half years. I gave him 20.
Wow.
And so it goes to show you of what the power of a metabolic test can do to be able to get you at your healthiest level. I did mine, and I brought mine down to 20. So I'm a 29-year-old boy. That's why I got my long hair. But maybe not with the broken arm right now, so I might have slacked off. And that's my goal for Catherine.
Yeah,
How can we make
my goal
Catherine
too.
a 31-year-old lady?
Yeah,
And
fantastic.
that's the goal.
Yep. So my next question is, so we can wrap this up, is how do people get in touch with you, Gilles?
They can go to o2max.ca. So O like Oscar, the number 2 max.ca. Or they can call me at the phone number. Look at I got my brochure here. I'm located on St. George Street Boulevard
In Moncton, for those of you watching.
in Moncton. So the phone number is 877.
Over some
What's
more.
my number? 7012.
I'll put it in the notes when I post this, everybody. But again, you can look up Gilles at o2max.ca. He's got a nice website there as well too. Make an appointment with Gilles. Gilles, how long does an appointment take to do the testing?
Well, the testing itself will take about an hour and a half, but I do need, sometimes I'd like to meet, have a consultation, find out what type of medication they're on, what type of physical activity they do, their goals, this, that. And but the metabolic test will take about an hour and a half to be able to do, and there's different things that I need to do. So half an hour consultation would be fantastic. And we also have the oxygen chamber here too as well, which is fantastic for
Yeah.
skin, collagen in her body. So
Yep, and our breathing. So if anybody doesn't know anything about the oxygen chamber, please go out and do your research.
yeah,
It's
definitely.
amazing. That is a whole nother session for another day that we will
Oh
do
yes.
on the oxygen chamber. But for now, thank you, Gilles, so much for coming on here today and sharing with us what it is you're doing. It's very important, Gilles, the work you're doing. And thank you for showing up and doing it every single day. And thank you for being such an awesome human being. And I encourage all my listeners to please give yourself the gift and make an appointment with Gilles and really understand how your body is performing. Thanks so much, Gilles.
Well, thanks for having me, and I'm going to enjoy, baking you a nice cake with 32 candles. Get it? Your metabolic age, you're going to be 32.
We'll share the results in about 6 months, everybody. Thanks so much, Gilles. Have a great day.
Thanks, Catherine.